This episode is proudly supported by Crunch. Running a hospitality business isn't for the faint-hearted. Between ordering stock, scheduling rosters, paying bills, motivating your team, and keeping customers happy, there's a lot on your plate. It's no surprise that business planning often gets put on the back burner. Well, here's something that can help. Introducing Crunch, a new app to help simplify the business side of hospo. With Crunch, you get access to practical, bite-sized education, proven strategies, and a supportive community of hospo owners just like you. When it comes to the Crunch, if you're looking for proven ways to build a successful, sustainable business, Crunch has you covered. Try Crunch now. To get 14 days free, just head to crunchhospo.com.au.
And I think the nicest thing that one of the chefs said is because she had been through a lot, she's been chefing all her life, and she called our kitchen a healing kitchen. So that was one of the nicest things. Where I'm not going to say it was easy, it's still not easy, but that was the nicest thing that someone could say, because that's kind of what we're trying to do.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Growing up in a family with a great connection to food can play a huge role in the way you cook and share food, but it doesn't necessarily lead to a career in food. But for some reason, that deeper connection to where food comes from has a funny way of eventually luring you in and getting you hooked on a career in food. Trinh Richards is the chef and co-owner of the Little Rickshaw. Trinh, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
It's awesome to get you on the show. You're making a bit of a name for yourself with a little establishment there in South Australia. How are things at the moment?
Honestly, there's nothing to complain about. Heading into the busy season, so we've got our crew ready to go. So I don't really know where to go from here, but just get ready for war, which we call summer.
Well, it is warming up, and it's a wonderful time of year, especially for the hospitality industry. Tell us about the region that you're in at the moment.
We are down in the Fleurieu, in Aldinga. So Aldinga is connected with the McLaren Vale region, but Aldinga itself is up and coming with the high street there on Old Coach Road, and the offerings that are now popping up, especially post-COVID. And that was a very different story, let's say 7 years ago when I first started the Little Rickshaw.
Why did you choose that region?
My husband and I, obviously, we moved down there and wanted to move down to the coast, I think 7-8 years ago. We've always loved it. We worked corporate jobs, 9 to 5, and always, every single weekend, we're down in the Fleurieu. So it just made sense to move there. Mike has a connection with his family, his parents who live down there, as well as his sister who's in viticulture. So it was a no-brainer, really, and we love the beach, love the area, love the lifestyle. Should have done earlier.
You briefly mentioned that you had careers in the city there, but you made a move into food. What triggered that move?
Well, I think I was a 9 to 5er. I wore suits. I didn't love my job. I didn't love the culture where you celebrate things over like a cake. There's just not a lot of drive. Where I actually didn't have a lot of friends where I was working either. So I didn't love my job. Like I was in, let's say, middle management, but the lifestyle, it just needed to change for me. I wanted to move into something that I actually really cared about doing, and I was in a lot of people management, and that burns you out a little bit. And I think moving, I quit my job, we found a house, we fluked it, and I fluked a job in a local winery. So there was a perfect transition into getting into food, where I was doing a vintage, doing some viticulture assistant work, and I ended up making vintage meals for the crew. So, and they had a great kitchen there, and they knew that I was doing this on the weekends as well. So, yeah, and that was in McLaren Vale at Tintara on the high street there. And that's kind of where it all started. Like, we were actually looking for a house, stumbled across the little market stall in Aldinga. So it was actually all right place, right time situation. And we knew there was a niche. The population down in the area is quite large, and there's not a lot of food offerings. So we just thought, why not start something small? Aim for, the goal was be a cool little banh mi shop. That was it.
Well, it is a beautiful part of South Australia. Tell us about the building as well that you landed on.
There is so much history where we are. It's a 190-year-old shed where there's a lot of connecting businesses and actually a dwelling on there as well. It's 190-year-old stone walls where it used to be, a blacksmith, and it was mechanics, and it was also a hearse maker for the local area. So the stories are, like, when the lights were on, they're building. They didn't store any people, like bodies there for anyone who's going to get scared when they visit. But they did build the hearse, and when the light was on, you knew that there was a passing in the area. So it's a very cool space. And when you walk in, there's like lots of old timber and leather and nails. It's still peppered throughout the whole venue. So we've kept that, given that it is heritage as well. It's hard to buy that. So, yeah, the soul was already there, and we just happened to stumble across it.
That's amazing. Does it have its challenges being a heritage building, sort of trying to execute what you do?
So many challenges. It's not a very practical space whatsoever. And I'm someone who I like right angles, I like spirit levels. Forget about it. You just have to make it work. So it's a hard space to use, but we make it work. And it's a small kitchen, so it does mean it's a quicker pack down as well.
Now, you did mention that you sort of had the shift and move into food, and I want to explore everything that you do and your food and the offering there at the Little Rickshaw. But take us back to when you were young. You got such a lovely story and connection to food growing up. Whereabouts did you grow up, and what sort of role did food play?
Gosh, well, I actually grew up in the northeastern suburbs of Adelaide, so I am an Adelaide girl. But both my parents are migrants. One being my father being a fisherman, very, very south in Vietnam, and mum living in the mountain areas where she was a part of like tea and coffee plantations. So very different connections to food from the coast to like the mountain areas. So it was actually quite nice to have that influence growing up. And it was a huge reflection on the food because my father, obviously, we went fishing here. Like, he was the best. I remember him catching fish and crabs for everyone else who was on the beach because they weren't catching anything. So that was such a cool experience as a kid growing up. My dad he was pretty cool because people were just asking him how to fish or how to crab and things like that. So that was a very cool memory to have as a child. And I think because my parents, mum's Roman Catholic and dad's Buddhist, we shared that in the household as well. So it was unique, but only growing up do I appreciate how much I'm grateful for that. So, and that's probably translated into what we do with food and the business because, well, mum was a traditional stay-at-home mum, dad worked, where we were lucky enough to have mum cook banquet-style food like every single night, which, we take that for granted now, I think, and going to like there was never a dish where it was an a la carte style at home. It was always shared. And I had two brothers, so eating was a matter of survival because the food was always delicious, but being in the northeast as opposed to like maybe like the western side of the city, where there wasn't actually a lot of Asian families in the area growing up. The Viennetta ice cream cake made the house cold, and that was a luxury item. Do you know what I mean? So that was my upbringing, where I honestly had the best of both worlds growing up.
I think it was a luxury item in many households in Australia.
It was. I think it really connects a lot of people. So I think that's a very cool thing.
Are there a couple of these banquets or feasts that you can tell us about that you remember fondly, like the food, this kind of food that your mum created?
Oh gosh, I think that whatever mum made, and then it translates into celebrating Lunar New Year's. There's just a lot of generosity, and every day we did eat rice, which was the norm, but it also included like four other main dishes. Like there's always a salad, there was always soups, there was always just multiple offerings on the table. And do I have a favourite dish? And this is probably more of my reflection of my personality. I don't, because I like them all. I'm not someone who can stick to a favourite and be done with it. So mine's based on my mood, what I feel like, but I just love all of it. Things that are really, really simple and subtly spice, or things with no spice, I really gravitate to all of it. And it's probably why I don't have tattoos. I can't stick to one and say, this is team me. I'm not about that at all. So yeah, that's why I think that's a massive reflection on what we do at the Little Rickshaw, because we've had so many micro evolutions over the last 6.5, 7 years we're moving up to. So it's very driven into what's available, what are you feeling, what the chef's feeling. So it's been very organic in how the business has shaped, and it's just grown so much since from day one. So.
Tell us about that little period of time where you got your foot in the door in the wine industry, and then, that you had the market stall sort of pop up. And how did you create the dishes and the food and get that mix right? What was it like that period of time?
Oh, well, like I said just before, is we wanted to be a cool banh mi shop. So the idea before was just to do basic food for the locals, traditional style, street food. And I'm talking about as amateur as it gets for someone who hasn't been in the industry before, but homemade spring rolls, Vietnamese pork belly, banh mi's, vermicelli noodle bowls. It was as basic as you could get, but it was fresh and all made from scratch. So those are the offerings that we also did for the vintage meals as well. The way it started for this pop-up or little market stall became available, and it was only 1.3 meters wide, and it was the most tiniest thing. It obviously wasn't insulated, there was no cooling, and we did maybe 4 things on the menu. And I do remember the first day that we had a line up down the street because of word of mouth. People even our landlords were a big factor in letting people know about what was coming. And we had a line up down the street, and then every Sunday we would just open until we sold out of food. And it was literally just my mother, my husband, and myself on the line. We had we didn't even offer drinks in the beginning, so we just opened to see what the local area entailed, and it just kept getting bigger and then busier, and it just took off from there.
What were the challenges that you faced sort of moving from that sort of model to almost like a bistro dining in a bricks and mortar venue? What were the challenges, and were you surprised by sort of running a restaurant compared to that sort of pop-up?
Oh gosh, well, it took months and to acquire any new space, where the pop-up or the market stall ran for maybe 4 months, and then we acquired a shed space where there was seated dining. So it was still cooking from the market stall or preparing things out of there, but there was indoor seating, and that lasted for 3 months, where then organically another part of the venue became available, and we created a 2.6 metre square kitchen, the tiniest kitchen on the planet, hand washing everything. And the transition was a slow burn, because it was like we acquired one space, we'd renovate it, we'd make a bit of money, spend a bit of money, and then it would happen every 3 months. There was always a new space or a new project that we'd be expanding organically. So that's where it led to, hey, let's get a liquor license, which wasn't an easy process. But I think after year 1, maybe year 2, we received a full liquor license. And then that's when we went from the cafe side to more the bistro side. And the challenge there is, well, I quit my job. So I quit my job first because it the momentum was just crazy. We didn't advertise. We didn't have signs up really. We still don't have signs up except for like this very, very old A-frame that we made 5 years ago that we just pull out before we open. So it was all word of mouth, and it didn't stop. The local support was absolutely unreal. So we was so grateful for that, where I finished up in any other role. This became my primary role, where Mike, my husband, kept working for I think another year or just under a year, just to start managing more of a restaurant style where it was all a la carte still, until he went to part-time, and then we started offering a banquet, and I fall over every time I think about it. It was a $36 banquet.
Wow.
Of 6 courses, which in hindsight, I'm thinking, why are we doing this? I don't know what costings I was doing to ascertain that number, but that's what we were doing. And then that crept up naturally, where from being a real nerd with food, to cooking from home and cooking for larger groups of people, because I did love socializing. Food is a love language, and I loved to cook for people. Translating from that to, well, I catered for like my own engagement party, let's just say. It was 120 packs, just my mother and I, where the dress and the makeup was secondary. I didn't get dressed until halfway through the night because we were cooking, but that's what I wanted to do. So that's probably a little bit of an indicator where I thought maybe we could do this as like as a career. But it didn't happen until I actually, met Mike. We went overseas. We were honeymooning in, I don't know, in I think France or Spain. And that's where the idea popped up. And then we started looking when we were looking for a house. And then going back to looking at it now, our plans of being the banh mi shop to the restaurant where we got the liquor license to then doing banquets, it's actually been a really organic process. And I think one of my strengths is cooking to scale. I don't know why I'm pretty good at it, but cooking for 4 to cooking for, let's say, 100 and maintaining consistency, I just have a knack for it. I've messed up a lot of things to be able to get to that point, but the transition for me wasn't too hard. So, and I think cooking with family and for parties was a bit of training for that. So
Tell us about the transition with your food during that period. You know, you went from the little banh mi store to, banquet. Tell us about the food and how much it changed just in that short period of time, and what were you serving?
Oh, gosh, I have to look back to the amount of meals and different dishes that we've made. Back then, I think we kept on one dish that we had from the pop-up or the market stall. Sorry, I keep saying I don't know what to call it. It was a green papaya salad with a Vietnamese mother sauce, Vietnamese roasted pork belly and noodles. That was the dish that we held throughout all the banquets for up to maybe year 3. So we had one staple dish, and particularly that salad. So that stayed on and went on the banquet menu. And then everything else around it was not because I think the customers loved it. And, customers say a lot of the customers from day one is still with us. But then there was a cohort who fell off because that's what they wanted us to be, which is, I think, fine, doing those noodle bowls, but I got bored. So the boredom led to, well, why don't I try this and why don't I try that? Because obviously I'm not qualified. I am someone who hangs my hat up saying, I've never seen someone else's kitchen. I was a food nerd, yes, went out a lot to eat, enjoy cooking, but I didn't have any training. So what did I do? I taught myself. So I did a lot of research. I do struggle with insomnia. I guess who doesn't in the industry? And insomnia leads to research. So that helped me a lot. And it went from more street food styles to I don't even know what you'd call it. I guess a bistro style, but the ingredients got better, the services got better, but we were still cooking things a la minute. And I didn't realize that that's actually hard to do. So, but that's all I knew because that's what you do at home. And that just translated into 20 packs, the 40 packs, the 60 packs. And I just maintained that standard, and the food just evolved with it, and it also evolved with the chefs that it was attracting. So it's very much so organic, where I love to collaborate with other people, other chefs, qualified or not qualified. I don't care about the resume. I care about what you want to do. I care about what type of food, and it's all about the passion and the collaboration of food with people from all different walks of life, because they've had so much training. They're a wealth of knowledge. So it was such a kitchen where you'd share it all. Like, you'd come and you just learn off each other. It wasn't such a militant style, because I'm someone who wants to learn it from the ground up. I'm not too proud to say, how did you do that? I have no idea what you're making. I don't know what that is. So, and I'm attracting people who have that same personality. I think we're just there to learn, and you can learn from everything. You learn from a good experience and a bad experience. And that's where the menu, it just happens organically. I probably need to record everything that's been made, but I haven't, not well. But that's the business. It's just, it was just natural to probably just work with who I had, the chefs we had. And yes, staffing is always a problem because it's hard to be consistent, but it was lucky that Mike was front of house, I'm back of house. So there was a consistency in that. So, yeah.
You mentioned your previous career before moving into food. Did any of that sort of job that you have, did that help with the role and the job that you have in hospitality at all?
Oh, plenty. From the kitchen perspective, I knew the legislation. I knew the hours that people are supposed to work, because I did payroll for such a short time when I was in uni studying visual arts. My parents didn't really approve of that choice to do oil paintings as an adult. But the corporate side taught me all the HR processes that I needed to probably run my own business, not run my own business, but manage the people underneath it as well, or working with us. So it was really helpful to manage people, whether it was in or out, the training, how we implemented the structure, which is just getting better and better, where I've actually brought in more corporate elements into the kitchen. There's digital, there's actual digital, prep list. Things are actually a lot organised in that regard, where it was a culture shock to a lot of chefs saying my prep list is online. So that was hard for a lot of chefs to adapt to as well. So there was a lot of the corporate side has helped me to this day to run the kitchen and run it in a way where it's it's the only way I know where it's quite a regenerative way of like leading people. It's, like I said, it's not a militant kitchen. It's all about investment in the people. And for hospitality, we always view anyone who wants to work with us as a long-term investment. So we view things, well, I view things like that, and I view the chefs that come through like that as well. And let's just say training someone, I think the people management side has been one of the biggest challenges, and it's actually something I wanted to get away from in my previous job. But I found myself having to do the same thing in this kitchen, but it's to a big benefit, where a sous chef rolls in and they're appointed sous chefs, which is still new for us, having the structure, but they're being trained on how to manage people. It's not just, belittle someone and yell, because it's not a kitchen that yells whatsoever. We've actually been told we're the quietest kitchen to watch. So but it's hard and fast too. So I think it's given us an edge in that regard, where we're trying to treat it, it's a trade, we're going to treat it like a trade. And we're bringing some structure into the kitchen where we're, as employees, we're accountable. So we're going to treat everyone with respect, and we just expect that back. So that's just what we've done since day one. And it's been a culture shock for a lot of chefs, but it's been a good one in that regard too. So,
what sort of impact has the shift into hospitality had on you. And how do you feel when you're in the kitchen of your own restaurant cooking for people?
Oh gosh, it's show business. It's like a curtain call when the doors are open. It is the biggest adrenaline rush. Obviously, you don't have a good service every day, but all the prep, all the background work, it's all about the service because it's very open kitchen, and the synergy you get from, clanging plates and customers laughing, and having chats with you at the pass, that's what it's about. So it's the connection. I don't think I could work in a kitchen that was closed. It has to be open or nothing because there's such a connection with food, with people, and like I said before, it's a love language. So I come from a home where you don't get hugs really. You don't get parents where a traditional Asian parents, they don't tell you that they love you. That's just assumed. So it's the labour of love is in food and through action. So it's such a community sense where the loneliness of running a business, which there are aspects of being quite lonely running a business, but it goes away because of the buzz of service and the sense of community that you do get from it. So it's the best high you can get, and I think it's why you do it, honestly. Service is where it's at.
Most restaurants in Australia are family run, and you run the Little Rickshaw with your husband, Mike. What's it like working together and getting that balance sort of in the business and away from the business?
Gosh, do we have balance? I'm going to say no, we don't. It's been one of the biggest challenges of running the business. It's very beneficial in one way because like I said, he excels in the front of house and he does a big chunk of that side of things with people, with the customer service side. And it does obviously cross over into the back, but we have very clear lines in the sand on decision making and veto areas in things. So we've set up very good structure between the both of us to do that. Is it easy? No. Do I list him? I have this funny spiel of saying he's my roommate, which is a terrible thing to call your husband. But the priorities really shifted when you're trying to keep a business alive, like during COVID, where it was funny where our husband's probably number 11 on the list, which is terrible. And we are both gluttons for punishment. And that's probably why the business has kept evolving.
It's that period of time of COVID had such an impact on everyone, and particularly hospitality as well. Did it change the way that you do things moving forward from then?
Oh, 100%. I think it's made us have a really good look at, first of all, our prices. We were told to put them up. And one costing thing was an issue. And half of that was because it's like, who are we to charge this? Does that make sense? And it was probably because Mike wasn't a restaurateur. He worked in running pub venues and running for big corporate companies too. But we were thinking, who are we? And I hate to say imposter syndrome, but I had that. I probably still do have it. Who are we to charge what we charge? That we had to get over ourselves and charge accordingly. We're still very transparent with what we do. COVID made us pull the reins in and to think about things like waste management. We do that even better. We already focused on that, and especially coming from a household that my mother ran, that there's zero waste was the goal. So she would walk around the kitchen and think, are you planning to put that in the bin? Because she still helps with prep. So COVID meant waste management. Oh, it's she's a force to be reckoned with, actually. She helped us with the waste management was more of a forefront issue for us because of COVID, but also how we staffed and how we hired, because we weren't eligible for JobKeeper, etc., because we weren't open for that long. So we had zero staff on JobKeeper. So to even have maintained anyone was more based on the local support. We opened up because we did previously in year 1 and 2, obviously we did takeaway. We did have to bring that back. Because of COVID, obviously, there were so many starts and stops with the rules and the different the different rules that they set on hospitality month to month. So that was a big game changer as far as how people perceived us. Like, it got quite muddy with, so you're doing takeaway, and all those people want us to do takeaway, really wanted that to stay, but that's not the business we were shaping. And because of COVID, though, there were a lot of chefs looking for jobs, chefs that probably would never consider working in a venue like ours, which we call it mum and dad run, those very small businesses, very amateur in one way, but quite transparent and honest with its offerings in like the other way. But we attracted chefs who had great resumes, and that was also a big tipping point in how we shaped the menu as well, because they dined with us. Like, became such a hospo venue on Sunday nights. It was all hospitality crew who were eating with us. So, and that's where they all found out about us, and eventually, like, we hired through COVID. So that was one of the biggest positives. Like, we hired through COVID. People who worked at, places like Beautimont and Bray and Fino and so many crazy venues, and they ended up at the Little Ricky's in Aldinga. So we were really lucky, and they were all very very positive people and how they impacted in what we do. And I think the nicest thing that one of the chefs said is, because she had been through a lot, she's been chefing all her life, and she called our kitchen a healing kitchen. So that was one of the nicest things, where I'm not going to say it was easy. It's still not easy. But that was the nicest thing that someone could say, because that's kind of what we're trying to do. Like, my mum's she doesn't work service, but she's there to prep. Like, it's just a respectful place, or that it is more so now. And that's what we're trying to be and work towards. So being good employers is actually very, very challenging. So being a good employer, running a small business, small margins, and trying to make a profit. So trying to weigh out, being a good person at the end of that, it does get really challenging. Hence the marriage, it was put on pause. Like, we've only been married for maybe 8 or 9 years, whatever Facebook says. I actually can't remember, which is terrible. That is such a terrible thing to say. Can you edit that out?
That's amazing. It's beautiful. I love it.
So that's why it was on the back. The back, because my husband is just as driven. We just want to do better. Why can't we do it better? So we've just kept pushing ourselves into the attention of the media. We didn't ask for it, and we ended up in the media, and then we had to uphold, oh no, what if people come down and it's not worth the hype? So all those things like start trickling in. So many pressures, because you didn't think you'd attract a critic in your restaurant. You didn't think you'd attract like a small piece in a magazine or a national magazine, let alone the paper. So all those things started to trickle in, and really it was around the COVID time, like pre-COVID and then post-COVID, when hospitality was reborn again. The media attention didn't stop, but the marriage kind of did. But we're at a year where I had my first service off last Thursday, which is a terrible thing to admit for anyone who wants to run their own business. I still encourage it highly. I had my first Thursday off. So it's at a point where I've got the best team. I've manifested the best team, where I like people who have side hustles in the hospo business. That's like, they're the future of hospitality. So we like having chefs, kitchen hands, front of house, you name it. If you want to own your own business, we like dealing with those people. We like we like those types of chefs in our family, because it's a good space to foster that. And we're transparent about it. I don't care if you're looking for somewhere to rent to start your own business. I'm going to help you look. So, because that is, if I had that in the beginning, I don't know if I would have listened. I'm not sure, because, you need to make your own mistakes before, you actually start listening to other people, which we had a lot of unsolicited advice because we didn't know what we were doing. And that was all good and fair. But to have like to be an employer where someone else didn't have to tiptoe around something they might be thinking about for their future. We're not that. We invite it, actually. So that's been probably the nicest transition, where chefs are quite comfortable. Yeah, I'm looking at doing this and that. And we've had so many entrepreneurs who have started their own business from working with us, or currently still thinking about it as well. So that's the coolest part about running the business, that the dream's not over. It is possible to open up your own venue, and that's what's going to keep the industry alive, and it's passion at the end of the day.
Yeah. You mentioned that your mum is a force to be reckoned with. What does she think about what you've created there?
She still pinches herself every day. She's quite popular with the family and all the suppliers, because she also does a lot of the market shops and stalls. She does a bit of our shopping for the, let's just call it the more hard to find ingredients that we can't get down in the fluoro, because getting produce down our way for some things gets a bit tricky. But she is so happy for us, and she is so fit that she will be with the business until maybe we decide to do something else. So her line always is, it's been such hard work, but her words are, I'll quit when you quit. So it's so nice to have her in the business, because it really has brought my family back together, because there was a little of a hiatus, and families are complex, but it really has brought our family super close. So it's been amazing, actually.
That's beautiful. Give us a sense of where you're at now. Is there a dish or two on the menu that you really love to cook at the moment?
Oh, gosh. On the menu now. That's a tricky one, because I'm going to go back to my issues of not settling on a dish. Do I have a favourite? I think my favourite dish at the moment is a side dish where we just serve a really smoky fried rice, where it's not just white rice. It's not just jasmine rice in a bowl. It's not just sticky rice in a bowl. It's we just push fried rice, and it's so simple, where it's, some customers, it's almost burnt, but it's not. So it has this crispy but gummy texture inside. It's such a peasant dish, but it's actually my favourite. It's just rice, where it's lemongrass, coriander, and Thai basil driven, and it's all wok based. The rice is cooked in a dashi broth that we make. And then there's seasonings on service, where I think the key for a lot of our dishes is one dish at least has 3 elements of a sauce or a salt or something, or a marinade. So the rice itself has, the broth that it gets cooked in. Then it has a lemongrass paste that it's fried in as a base. Yes, we do add butter, because it's the best for smoking rice in a wok. And then we have a really fresh, vibrant oil at the end as well. So it's just this bright green. I call it emerald rice. That's my favourite. There's so many other more technical dishes, but at the end of the day, it's the really simple food that I gravitate towards. So that's my favourite dish at the moment. It'll probably go in 2 weeks, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so it's that, and it's just a side dish.
Well, for someone that might be looking for a career change into food, or taking the leap and just opening their own business for the first time, what sort of advice would you give them?
Oh, gosh. Advice would be, let's just say, negotiating a really good deal from the rent, the terms of your lease, read the fine print. I think that would be the biggest, do read the fine print, basically. So that is that's the difference in what margins will come at the end of the day. And because we're rural, it's very different to the city. But I think locking in a really good contract with a reasonable landlord, that's probably my biggest advice. But then as far as you're already emotionally attached to food, because that's what you do. I'm not someone who reads reviews. I haven't read a review in 5 years for my own venue. Just don't look at the reviews. It's I go on customer feedback. So for me to not maybe, cry myself too hard before sleep, Don't look at the reviews. I go on plate waste. I go on customer feedback. I go on front of house and back of house feedback. It's just trial and error. So as far as advice, I would recommend anyone who's willing to work hard to open that up and to not. If they're a bit of a glutton for punishment, that means your personality profile fits the bill. That's perfect. Then the next one is, I think, don't rest on your laurels too early. As in, you've got a good product, but don't be complacent in the early years, because I think the early years is where it matters, where the long-term investment in a business, not just being a business that just opens and then shuts within 2 or 3 years, the long-term game would be to not get complacent in any sort of busyness or success in the beginning. You just got to keep going. So then you maintain that with staff, and then it's a long-term investment for everybody, if that makes any sense. Because as soon as you start not being consistent, things like that, that's where things start to unravel. So consistency is key. And if you're the owner of the business, you're the one who fills in the gaps for the consistency. So if you're not willing to do that, then it's going to be probably something I'd tell them not to do. Because do you know how many of our chef friends or hospo friends told us we were crazy before opening this? They told us we were crazy. I get why. I get why, like I really do. But would I have done this any differently? Well, probably not. Just love what I do. So, and I love the people that I work with. I love like the whole network. Because we're in wine country, it's a very cool community that goes around in circles. Like in the beginning, where we were nothing, we were a nothing restaurant, but the restaurants like the Salopian Inn and the Star of Greece, they would recommend us. They didn't have to, but they do, and that really does encapsulate what the Fleur is about. Everyone supports everyone. So it's the nicest environment. And even to this day, working at the winery, I only did one vintage. I don't know what impact I put on the place besides feeding the crew. They still support us to this day. Like the word of mouth is what we base our whole restaurant on, because we don't do social media. We don't scream out louder, we are good, come see us because we do this. It's more of a find out about us, maybe do background research. We are esoteric. We're not for everyone. So it's the word of mouth. It attracts the right people to come and eat with us because we've moved to banquet only. So, and that's also answers the COVID question. It was only even 10 months ago, we were still doing a la carte then, but we made a big decision to go to all banquet, which has been the best decision we've ever made.
Well, some people say you do need to be a little bit crazy to create something special, and you've certainly created something special there. What do you love about what you do?
What do I love? I think I like the lifestyle. I like working odd hours. I actually like working night times. I like nighttime culture. And I really like the camaraderie that you get with the front and back of house crew. It's working as a team and a well-oiled machine. It gives you that adrenaline, that drive. So maybe I'm a little bit addicted to that. So I think that's why I like it. But I also like the freedom. Being my own shitty boss, that's kind of nice. If I'm calling in sick, I'm calling into myself. So it's the freedom to make those executive level choices, but in a small business. So it's nice having control with what we do, pulling things off the menu. Like if something's not right, just print the menu. So we print the menu daily, and having the freedom to, if something's not right, or if we didn't get the supply of something, or something's run out, having that control to just, like I said, be transparent. If something's run out, I don't replace it. If it's not equivalent to the standard of the dish, we'll just take it off. So that's where that control, or that, I don't know, creativity, that's why I love it. And I think because it's art, I did study art. I was terrible at it, doing visual arts at Uni SA. but it transpires into food like 100%. So the creative side of that keeps me going like every day. So there's always something to learn, and that's the chefs that I have that I work with now. So that's been very cool.
Well, Trin, I could talk to you all day. It's been an absolute joy to have you on Deep in the Weeds.
Oh my gosh, how long has it been? I wrote all these pages down. I didn't even talk about any of them. It's all good.
Well, we'll have to catch up again down the track because I think you've got so much more to say. It's been an absolute honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds today. So please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Yes, certainly. Thank you so much, Huck.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.